send you the recording afterwards, so that way you could share it with folks at work or rewatch it, whatever makes you happy. Also, feel free to check out our other events, because we have lots and lots of future trainings that will help you as you move through the different parts of your career. Tons and tons of really good complementary resources that ALV utilizes in addition to our coaching services. So these are all complementary. So feel free to find the ones that work for you in addition to taking us up on our coaching services as well. Lastly, ask questions. I know I will have on the agenda that you can ask questions at the end, but I will tell you, for how I like to do these webinars, it's okay with me if you interrupt. I don't even care if you turn your mic on and go, hey, 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 hey. If you want to ask a question in the moment is the best way for me. I don't need to talk for the hour and then have questions. So feel free to either pop them in the chat and Jill will catch them and let me know and interrupt me, or you can interrupt me, all good. I'm seeing the chat light up on my screen a little bit, so I'm hoping that means you're all connecting. So that's really, really good. All right, so here's what we're going to cover today, which is, why does being a good leader matter? And then our 3 tips are basically how to organize, how to delegate, how to show up for your staff, putting it all together. And then I will certainly talk about how I can help you. And like I said, at the end there, of course, it's always Q&A, but I'm happy to have you interrupt as we go through. So in the chat or pop your microphone on, why do you think this kind of training matters? What kind of things do you think it does for your team if you train this way and elevate your leadership? Any thoughts?
Hi,
No.
this is Eva.
Hi, Eva.
So I think that it's really important because to always keep your toolbox or tool sharp, and it can re-energize you and at the same time re-energize your team.
100%. Increase morale, huge. Anytime you can put tools in your toolbox will help your team. I'm seeing a couple things in the chat. I pulled the chat up, so I have like 17 things on my screen now. I'm seeing helps your team work better together, 100%. And anytime your team is working more effectively, you tend to be more productive. Pushing myself to do well, yes. Personal development, personal growth. And when you have that personal development and growth, it helps your team because you're exempling, you're leading by example. They can see that and they can mirror that behavior. Learning to be a better leader for our team, exactly. More, again, back to this more tools in the toolbox piece. Better communication and support with team, working towards that common goal. Teach empathy, teach compassion. Huge pieces when we're communicating with our team. Empathy, compassion. Today is a hard day for many people in your office post-election, regardless of what candidate was their choice. It's a hard day. So even more important than ever to talk about elevating our leadership and things that you can do in the moment to get those things over the top. So, and I think we've covered them all: empowering your team, increase morale, putting tools in our toolbox, learning empathy, being better leaders for our team, retaining employees. If we're better leaders, that's just what's going to happen for us. So first usable tip for the day is organize. Being organized as a leader. And that doesn't just mean having color coordinated folders. It means doing certain things like level setting with your group, providing accountability for your group, providing clear feedback, and having really good one-on-ones and staff meetings. And I'm going to go through each one a little bit and talk to why that's important. So we hear the word level setting all the time, and it's becoming, a very big buzzword. Level set, level set, level set. What does that really mean for us as leaders? What level setting means is you're taking the time to let your team know what your expectation is for them. So you're essentially, as if it was construction, setting the level. You want to show them what balance looks like and what your expectation is that that balance will look like and what their part in it is. What's really important about that as a leader is it's very difficult for your staff and even for yourself to do any work that's of value if you're not sure what you're doing it for. So very important to set that expectation, then everyone's on the same page and everyone knows what's coming. And that gives you as a leader an opportunity to be participant, observer, leader, because you're in with the groove. You're abiding by whatever that expectation is as well. And that sets a really nice tone. I think, see, Betsy just chimed in on the chat, and I wish she would have turned off her mic to say this for herself. But yes, letting your team know what's coming and why it's coming your way. So that's part of that level setting piece. In doing that level setting piece, it's really important that you're constantly documenting and sharing what you're documenting. Communication is such a key when you're going through this process with your team. And make sure you're constantly following up. You just think about scenarios you've been in where something happens and all of these steps are taken and we're level setting and we're talking about what's coming and we're making everybody know what the expectation is, and then there's no follow-up and the bottom drops out. So that follow-up piece, that keeping everybody in that place is super important, and it moves to accountability. Holding your team accountable is really important for that same reason. So now you've set that level for them and you're doing the feedback and you're doing all of those pieces, but if you're not checking back and holding them accountable for their part in what the expectation was, it's difficult to expect that they will continue to meet that expectation. You need to hold them accountable to the same rules. The team needs to function as a unit working towards a single goal. And that's how it helps to keep them accountable. Something else that really helps people stay accountable is feedback. Both negative and positive feedback. As best as you can do it in real time, the better. Now you want to be mindful of where and how. You're not going to want to call out a lot of the negative feedback in front of a group because it doesn't bode well for increasing that morale, which is one of the reasons we said we're trying to learn about these things. So important to find your appropriate place and time to have that conversation, but it's really important to provide both positive and negative. When people don't get any negative feedback or follow-up, and then they are told that something isn't 100% right, they're caught by surprise because all along they've only gotten positive reinforcement. So it's important to give both feedback, but it's how you frame it. And it's very important to frame the pieces in that constructive way. And there are some ways that you can do that are very helpful. A couple little bonus tips here. When giving negative feedback, it's very important to follow a couple of guidelines. The first is always ask permission. You always want to ask the person permission, and sometimes it's implied permission because you are the boss and you are the leader. You can just turn around and say, really like to tell you something. That's implied permission. They sort of have to give you that permission, but it's even nicer if you can say, you know, would you mind if we talked about what just happened? You know, or hey, can I tell you something? Because then it just gets their attention and their buy-in that you're able to have that conversation with them and framed out correctly. So it's ask permission. It's usually say something supportive. And it doesn't have to be flowery and it doesn't have to be over the top, but something supportive. I really like the way you handled this in this meeting. I was really impressed by the work you put in on this project. Then that next piece is, what the negative feedback is going to look like. I would really like it if you could. I statements are really important because they give you ownership of the statement. I would like it if next time you wouldn't say blah and the why, and then follow up with something positive that they could do, whether it's supportive, whether it's a solution, whether it's something for them to explore, because that frames the negative in a way that feels useful. It feels productive. It's not just a criticism. It's something to get them to their next best piece, which comes to this next piece of talking about, which is having effective one-on-ones and staff meetings. Again, without having everybody buying in and doing that level set piece, it's going to be very hard to have these effective one-on-ones. What I have up on the screen now is a tool that many of our leadership coaches use when we're training a client in that coaching piece. When we have these one-on-ones, we'll introduce this form that you can utilize with your clients, as with your staff as well, which is, it gives us sort of printed agenda to follow. So again, back to that level setting piece, is that your staff member knows what's coming and they have a say in this. So it's wins, let them share what they think went well. Updates, what they've completed, which is always good to have that sense of accomplishment, what they think will make them successful, and then concerns that they have. So this gives you as a manager or a leader a very clear path of how you're going to take them through those pieces. And while it's not as easy to use this in a staff meeting, what you can do in a staff meeting is use a ton of agenda items. Have a very clear set of what you want to go over. And the reasoning behind that is, again, it keeps everybody on the same page. If you have somebody who wants to talk about something different, you can acknowledge it and say, well, let's add it to the agenda for next time, or let's write it down. And if we have time at the end of this meeting, we can talk about it. Or if it's something you need to see me about one-on-one, let's do that. So that way nobody feels that their concerns are going unheard of, or their ideas or their voice isn't being heard. But it does give you some structure to have that meeting and have it run effectively, so you're not going all over the place. Second thing that's super important is to delegate. And delegation doesn't have to be a dirty word, said by one of our very own leadership coaches, Jen Maynard, who is awesome at elevating leaders up to where they need to go. Again, I'm going to ask you guys, drop it in the chat. What does good delegation look like to you? What kind of things do you delegate? Or what does it mean to you when you're working with your team? Or unmute your microphones and tell me what you think. I know for me, delegation was always very difficult when I first started managing teams, because I felt like if I didn't do it myself, it wasn't going to get done correctly. So over time, I needed to learn, that delegation is okay and it's important to delegate out. I'm seeing a bunch of stuff coming through in the chat now, which I'm loving to see. Stretch opportunities for staff, that's great. Delegation is about trusting your direct reports. Oh, trust is huge. And if you've done that organizational piece where you're level setting, that trust should be coming. Provides associates challenge to stretch. It's important for sure. Trusting someone to do something in a project without micromanaging, so hard, because a lot of times we feel like, again, I know for me, if I don't do it myself, it's not getting done right. So it's that building that trust and that team camaraderie and rapport with your staff and your team, so that you are working towards the same goal. I'm seeing other things coming through the staff. I'm going to read them through. Betsy, again, I told you, one of our great leadership coaches here. There's no way to grow your team if you can't let go of whatever it is. Oh, Forum joined us. Hi, Forum. Forum is the co-founder of ALV here, also one of our great leadership coaches. And she says, I talk about this all the time. Delegation is step one into coaching up your team. And that's the next piece we're going to talk about in showing up is how are we coaching for our team? Identifying strengths of your team. And that's how I feel. If I don't do it, it will not get done correctly. Yeah, but I hope I'm saying your name right. Fanley, That's what we're going to learn not to do, because it doesn't build a strong team. So what's really important in delegation is a couple of these pieces, which is sometimes you can let your team self-delegate. And what's really good about letting them self-delegate is they can think, your team can often come up with what they think they're going to be good at. So if they self-delegate, they're taking control. They're taking ownership of these pieces. And again, not always so easy, but that's, as good leaders, what we have to learn to do is let them self-delegate so that they can see where their strengths are and stretch their projects, like a bunch of you said in the chat, which is super important. This is something that I use all the time when I'm managing teams, which is being very upfront about delegation. Involve your team. Let them know we're delegating projects. Let's hear what that input is. Let them have a seat at the table. Again, you're getting a lot of buy-in. You're starting to build that trust and that rapport so that you have the interactions that you can have when you have to have a tough conversation or you want to have a project to move forward productively. Very oftentimes you can delegate based on, I think someone said this in the chat too, they dropped it, personal development for a team member. Maybe they have an idea of a direction they want to go. Now you can delegate a task to them that might help them grow in that area for themselves. Same thing with growth. If you see potential in somebody as a leader who you think needs a little push, delegate a task to them that helps them rise to the occasion, learn new skills. We're all on this call to put new skills and tools in our toolbox. Well, we want our staff to do the same thing. And I think it's been said, you're only as good as your staff is doing for you. And that's a big piece of it, is that if your team isn't running effectively, your projects aren't going to run effectively. And that's always a reflection on what your team is doing. So really helpful to try to get your team doing the things they want to do, things that they're good at, rewarding for that behavior, and really building that trust in themselves and building their own skills. What's super important about delegation is doing it clearly. There's no thing worse, and I'm stumbling here because I'm trying to keep it clean. There's nothing worse than not being clear. If you are not clear, again, I'm going all the way back to level set expectation. If you are not clear with your team about what you're expecting them to do or how to delegate, even if you allow them to self-delegate, which, like I said, I'm a fan of, because it gets so much more buy-in. But once again, if it's not clear, that's where you're going to have your challenges. And it becomes difficult because people get caught up in, well, you said, and he said, and they said, and she said, and this is not what we agreed on. That's why that organizational piece is so important to do first, because then you kind of get your processes in place. And I'm not suggesting everything has to be so regimented and routinized. It has to fit your culture. It has to fit what works in your team. But having some sense of what everyone's expected to do and communicating it really clearly and following up with that makes a huge difference. And I mentioned this before, but you definitely want to provide rewards. Look, we all want a reward. Personally, I always like to get a cookie when I do something well. Makes me feel good. I feel like I've done something good. I like the gold star. There's a reason why when we're younger, these things work for us. These behavioral conditioning pieces work when we're younger because of the feeling of accomplishment we get when we get the gold star, or we get an M&M, or we get a cookie, or whatever it is. So when we're a little bit older, the reward has to be slightly different. Although I will say, please do not discount the tremendous positivity of a donut in the break room. I mean, I'm just going to say it. I mean, we're all thinking it, so I'm just going to say it right there. It still works as a reward. But rewards have to be appropriate to what the task is. You know, we're not talking about leading a team of sheep around. We're talking about leading teams of intelligent people who are ready and willing and able to work. You can't over the top reward. So, because it'll diminish it, and people know that. They know if they're getting a reward that's not in line with the task that they just did, which creates other problems for them because they're not staying in line. So you want to make sure you're rewarding appropriately. You want to make sure you're rewarding within the team. Really important to spend time on what is that objective at the end, because again, and this goes back to that level setting piece, when you're clear about what you're supposed to be working towards, teams will work more effectively because you can get buy-in from everybody. So really important. So now we're starting to build. We have reorganize, we have delegate, and here we go. This is the key. When I say when you show up, what does that make you think of as a leader? Again, throw them in the chat. Tell me when I say you have to show up as a leader, what does that make you think of? Because I know show up means different things to different people. So I'm seeing, I think I missed a whole bunch of stuff in the chat. I'm sorry. Was I supposed, did I need, Jill, somebody tell me, was I supposed to stop and answer some things in the chat?
Nope. You're good. I just wanted to let you keep going. So we do have some great questions. Any tips with dealing with the feeling that if you don't want it, if you don't do it yourself, it's not going to get done the way you want?
So that's where really good coaching comes in. Really, it's learning how to let go and to trust your team. And that's where these tips come in. And the very next one I'm going to talk about will also answer pieces of that. But learning how to let go is something you have to work on with your team. So it's once you've set expectations, you're holding them accountable, you are communicating, you're following up, you're doing delegation, and people are thriving and you're seeing a project move forward. Baby steps, you'll start to realize that as much as you're gaining their trust, you are also now trusting them. So you can let go a little bit more and start to see that this works and your team is solid and you are cohesive and you are working towards that common goal. And everybody may have a different process of getting there, but as long as you're supporting those processes and it's getting the result you want, then you'll slowly let go little by little. And whoever asked that question, if I didn't answer it to your satisfaction, please pop on and let me know what else I can answer for you about that. So I'm trying to read through some quickly. My supervisor says that we are leaders just by showing up every day. I love that, supervisor. You are. If you come ready to work and ready to learn and ready to grow and ready to be a part of a functioning team, those are leadership qualities. That's 100% a leadership quality. I see be there 100% for your team. Don't lead, be part of the team. The most important thing you can do is listen. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I'm going to say yes like 4 more times because part of our struggle in listening is that we don't do it actively or effectively. And what does that really mean? What that means is that we hear stimulus coming into our ear, but we don't necessarily actually listen because we don't process that information. We're busy thinking about, hey, what am I going to respond with? Right? What am I going to respond with instead of what is this person saying? Whereas if you're truly listening, there's steps that you take. You first have to understand. You have to remember. You have to interpret and make sure that the context and who's speaking to you and does it make sense. Then you have to prepare your reply. And is it appropriate? And then you respond. And many of us just miss that whole chunk in the middle there. I'm pretty sure one of the reasons that we do is we were trained to listen at certain ages. We were told, probably up until 4th, 5th grade, we were always told when to listen, right? The teacher would clap, she would put on a light, he would put up his fingers, parents would say, look at me, I need you to listen to me now. We're always being told when to listen. Like 4th or 5th grade, we forget being told. We're just assuming that we now know when it's important to listen, which we don't always know because we fill in the blanks. And if we think we know what's being said to us, we don't continue that listening cycle to actually get the information, even if it's going to be helpful to us. So whoever said that in the chat, 100%, listening is super important. I'm seeing, can you talk about leading independent contractors that you must inspire and you don't pay them? That's a hard one, right? Because you're not paying their salary. They're going to get paid either way. And yet you still have to get them to do what you need them to do. That's where the combination of setting the expectation, continuing to hold them accountable, following through, and delegating to their strength will really a lot of times get you that buy-in. Again, groups that are most effective are typically groups that have people who are all looking for the same goal. You don't necessarily all have to get there the same way, and you don't even all have to like each other and agree all the time. But if you agree on what that common goal is, and you're being led appropriately with the buy-in, with accountability, with effective one-on-ones, with being organized, with delegating, and all of those pieces, you'll create a group think, which really builds that trust and that rapport. And usually your independent contractors will come online. So that's really important as well. So what does showing up mean? A lot of showing up is talking about what hat you're going to wear. And when I say that, what hat you're going to wear, I'm talking a lot about, are you going to be a coach? Are you going to be a manager? Are you going to be a trainer? Are you going to consult? Are you going to be a mentor? And there's differences between all of these things. And when you work on one-on-one coaching through ALV, we talk about the differences between each one of these pieces and how they affect your team differently. For my purposes, in terms of what we're talking about here, in terms of elevating leaders, I like for you to have your coach hat on as much as possible. But that doesn't mean there aren't appropriate times to be a manager, a trainer, a consultant, a mentor. And how you know which hat you're going to wear is often led by questions you're asking your team or questions your team is asking you. So I love being curious. As often as you can be genuine and ask a question and be interested in the answer will tell you what your team is needing and how you have to adapt to that. Something I'm talking about with, I also teach college, and something I'm talking about with my students this week, which is relevant, is the difference between a masculine and a feminine style of communication, not being gender-based, but being people-based. And we were talking about, in terms of their bosses, who they respond better to. Someone who uses a very direct style or someone who couches it with a little bit more emotion and feeling. And overwhelmingly, they like both. They like a hybrid. They like for their leader to be able to read the situation, check the context, and then adapt to what's needed at that moment. I find when you're in a corporate situation, it's easier to do that when you're asking questions and being curious. Know about your team. Know who they are, know how they work, know what their strengths are. Know how that fits into the rest of the group, because that helps you show up to support them. I'm saying, I have the word avoid here. What I would like for you to avoid is asking the question why, which anyone on this call who's worked with me knows is funny for me to even say, because I am a why girl. But when you're in a leadership capacity and you're working with your team, why can sometimes feel very offensive. It's very attacking, as opposed to asking open-ended questions. How can I support you? What do you need in this case, instead of why? A lot of times they don't know why, which is why they're having that conversation with you, or why it's your job as the leader to put that together for them. I'm gonna just, before I move to this last putting it all together slide, Jill, do we have any more questions? Did I miss some? I was trying to catch them while I was going.
Yes, we do have a
Okay.
few
All
other
right,
ones.
let's do a couple and then we'll go to putting it together.
All right. How do you inspire people when you don't feel inspired?
Oh, really? Did someone set me up for that one? That's so hard. And it's a real question, and it's so valid because your team is looking to you for that inspiration. They're looking for you to give them something to hold on to. If you are not inspired, you need to figure out what about this project could be inspiring. Maybe you reframe, maybe you adopt a different process that you've never done before. Maybe you shake up how you've delegated. Maybe there's a new approach. Maybe we need to bring new people to the table and get their input so that you yourself can find some inspiration. Often, if I am uninspired, I will turn to my team and say, what have you done in the past? What have you found that works? What do you like about this project? Because maybe I've missed it. Maybe just my own lens is that I've not seen what could be exciting about that. So turning back to your team and again, having them have a say, oftentimes will re-motivate you or find something inspirational. Even if it's the smallest part of the project, maybe even not the most substantial or significant part, if you can find something, there's always a place to build. That's how I usually handle it. I find that I feed off of my whatever team I'm in at that time feeds me. And I use that to take my leadership up to whatever that next notch is and then bring it back down to the group. So it's constant cycling. All right, we're good. Are we more?
We do.
We do. All right.
Yes, we have a few more. We'll do one more now, and then we'll save the rest for Q&A.
Whatever you tell me.
All right, cool. What can young leaders do to earn the respect of their older, more experienced teammates?
I feel like I'm being set up here. Do you guys know I'm the ageism expert here at ALV? Okay, so young leaders and older leaders both have the same problem in that if you're a younger leader, the older leaders don't respect you. If you're an older leader, the younger leaders think you're old and outdated. What has to happen in both cases is a matter of value. You keep showing up, you keep showing your value, showing your impact. Those are the things that gain you the respect. It's a show, not a tell. It's let me be part of this team. Let me build rapport with you. Let me gain your trust. Let me help you. Let me support you on both sides. Young leaders need to do it without an attitude of I'm young, I'm new, I'm fresh, I have all the answers. And older leaders need to do it without the attitude that say, I'm here, I'm established, I know how it works. We've done that 1,000 times, it doesn't work. So, and somewhere in the middle is where you find that sweet spot. Young leaders can learn from more people who have had more experience. They've done some things you haven't. And conversely, older leaders can learn from younger leaders fresh perspectives, new ways to approach things, because the way you've always done it might not be working. Maybe that's where the inspiration got lost somewhere along the way. So young leaders, again, continue to show up, show your value, make an impact on your team. And older leaders, same thing. Same thing. Okay, so this is how we put it all together, which is organize, which we already talked about, set those expectations, make sure you're communicating. Delegate, make sure the people who are doing those jobs are doing the ones that they're supposed to be doing that lends to the greater project, the greater team good, whatever that objective is. Coach. Coach, 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 1,000 times coach. Be there and show up for your team. Make sure they know that they can come to you, that you can have that difficult conversation, that you're going to ask those questions that get to the bottom of things so that you can turn things around. And lastly, take action. Put all of these things together, and if you need to identify a gap, come for coaching. work with one of our leadership coaches, get what you need one-to-one, come up with your Elevate strategies and work through it to your next level. Mentor a young leader, take on an older leader, mentor them because maybe they want to change skills, and really work it so that you're bringing out your best qualities and your team's best qualities. All right, who's ready to take action? I would love for you to throw in the chat, tell me one commitment you're going to make today that you're going to change in your leadership strategy. I want to hear it in either in the chat or unmute, or let me hear. All right, Eva's going to organize. I'm seeing that coming through. So you're going to organize. What are you going to do, Eva, to organize? What's one of the first thing you're going to do?
So I think the first thing that I need to do is bring some clarity into what my goals are for the team.
Okay.
So that I can, communicate that to the rest of the team. So I feel like I have a lot of ideas in my head,
Right.
but they're not organized. And so it's a little bit of a scatter for the rest of the team.
Right. Well, it's hard for your team to show up if they don't know what's going on.
Right.
I see Lisa saying delegation. What does that look like for you, Lisa? What kind of commitment does delegation mean for you?
Well, tomorrow I'm the one. I lead a team of independent contractors. So yeah. Tomorrow we have a team meeting, and I'm going to engage people instead of being the only presenter. Get my team members engaged to do different components of it, to get buy-in, and I want to. That's the first thing. So that's what I'm going to.
I'm so glad. All right, I think I'm hoping I'm saying this name right. Alexis is practice active listening, try not to ask why, and let employees self-delegate. How does that look for you? Is that really difficult? I don't know where you went. All right, I'm hoping it's not. I'm seeing introduce culture of self, delegating teams, provide opportunity for self-delegation, set stronger expectations by asking for understanding after providing direction. Yes, yes. We have our teams rotate facilitating the team meetings. Great idea from Amy. Let's share that with everybody. They have their teams rotate facilitating the team meetings. Talk about buy-in and ownership of the project. It provides them with the opportunity to speak in front of a group, manage the agenda, and collect topics. Great. Follow up better with the staff. These are great. I'm loving it. I want you all to tell me how it goes when you try these things. I want to see if you're seeing that change immediately. If you need some more support, our team is here to help. Like I said, we have an unbelievable staff of coaches across the board. And one of the things that I'm loving about how we coach here at ALV is that we share coaching. So you work with a key coach in your given area, but if there's something that needs a little zhuzhing or something along those lines, or you need a little support in another area, we can bring in a celebrity coach if that's their area of expertise. So you're really getting the most robust experience you can from your coaching. What I'm offering you guys today is free 30-minute leadership strategy session. I have spots to do 3 coaches. I'm going to ask Jill, I think there's a link. Jill, you can put my link
I'll
in
get
there.
I'll get it.
My first 3, we'll get a free leadership strategy session where we can do some of the one-on-one, like I took you through today, and help you get through some of your pain points in what's keeping you sort of a barrier to get to your next level. And one of the ways we do that, our coaching methodology, is we work through this ADIT piece with you. So first we assess, we get together, we get to know each other, and you probably use a similar process with your staff as you're working with your team, which would be, again, get to know each other, figure out where we're at, talk about some goals, self-awareness, do some personal learning, what your growth piece is, and then implement what's actionable for you. How do we work on this feedback practice loop? Checking in, what the plan is. Let's get some strategy together, and then transition you into making these things sticks for your own accountability, longer term planning with your team, and personal reflection, so that you're feeling that you're handling this right and that you can continually go back and tweak. Coaching from ALV, when you coach with us, is that it is a completely customized experience for you. A lot of us have been doing this for years. We have set things that we do, but each of you are in a different place. So one of the things is that we work with where you are. Where are you at right now? Because your needs in getting your leadership kicked up is a little bit different than someone else's. Do you need help in organization? Do you need help in delegation? Do you need help in asking those questions? So what we do is we work with you between visioning and one-on-one coaching and modules and exercises, and take you through the ADIT framework to figure out where are you and what we need to do for you. So everybody's plan is different. These are just some of the clients that we've worked with successfully through upping their leadership and changing the shape of how some of their leaders work with people. So it's quite an impressive list. I love seeing it every time I put it up. And lastly, make sure you get that session in. Make sure you grab it. Oh, there's my quote. And this is my email. So what's on here, that goes to me, a real person, the person you're seeing on the screen. I don't have anyone who goes through my email for me. So feel free to reach out. Again, I'm going to go back to the beginning. If you didn't drop your LinkedIn in the chat, please make sure you do. And please make sure you reach out to me, because I don't get the chat. I can't click through on all of them while I'm coaching you guys. All right, questions. I'll take all the questions that there are. Jill, questions for me? Are there any? I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody.
We do have a few left.
All right, well, let's see what we can answer, because I think we have about 10 more minutes of these people's time.
Can you give us an example of how we're supposed to be that hybrid leader?
Oh, so first you have to identify what kind of communication style you use typically. Most of us have a dominant style that we use. So, so you have to figure out which one you are first. So typically, if you are a masculine communicator, again, it has nothing to do with gender. You tend to be more direct, straightforward, less emotion, very authoritative. If you use a feminine style of communication, there's more detail, there's more emotion, there's more feelings involved, can be a little bit more vague because you're filling in all of those details. So first you have to figure out what your dominant is, and then when you think it can be useful to change to the other one. Typically, you have to learn how to read the context of the situation. If there is more of an emotional situation, and this is where that active listening comes in, is the appropriate response compassion or empathy or sympathy or comfort or support? You're going to tend to use that feminine style a little bit more. If the situation is, you've determined someone needs direction, very clear, not leaving a lot of room for interpretation, you're going to tend to use that masculine style. And you can change person to person. I will tell you, in my professional life, I tend to use a much more masculine style of communication. In my personal life, I use a much stronger feminine style of communication. But come to me with an emotional issue, and I can adapt to using that feminine style with a team member. Because you have to be able to, again, you want to meet your team where they are. That's what provides the support. I hope that was helpful. Any more questions for us, Jill? Let me see. I might be able to see the chat myself now.
Yeah, there's a few more.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Oh wait, maybe they were just, nope, they were just comments. And then just asking about the recording. We will share the recording. And I sent the link for for your strategy session.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I hope to see some of you. It was fun spending this day with you, or this hour with you, so many of you, and I love that you played with me. I very much appreciate that. So I'm going to give you 7 minutes of your day back. It's a gift. It's a gift. It's a Wednesday gift.
Especially today.
Especially today. I'm going to give you your Wednesday gift back. Please reach out with any questions. I don't mind answering them, and I'm happy to have a conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Shari, and thank you, everyone, so
Thank
much
you.
for joining. Thank
Great
you.
stuff. Thank you so much. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Have a good
everybody.
day, everybody. I love watching all the names. That's my favorite.
I do have a question.
That's good.
Well, I've participated in a couple of the sessions, and I don't even know how I connected, to be honest with you, with the organization. But I'm interested in the coaching. So I just go out to the website and connect, or how do I find out more about it to make sure it's going to work for me in terms of career coaching, transitional?
Can we put, Jill, can you put the link for consults in so they can get to Brittany, or thank you.
Yep,
So Lisa,
I'm on
perfect. Thank you so much. Lisa, the best way to do that is the link that Jill's going to put in is to click up and make, excuse me, an appointment with one of our relationship specialists. And what they do is they spend 30 minutes with you talking through, you know, what you anticipate your needs are and how you like to work. And then what they'll do is they'll match you with a personality coach of who they think that you'll work best with to get the most bang for your buck and get you to what your next level is.
Okay.
And they introduce you to that coach so you can have a conversation. So like on this call alone, I led this call, but Betsy, one of our coaches, were on this call. Jill's on this call. Forums was on this call. Jen is in leadership, she wasn't on this call, but so off the top, there's 4 people, and we have different styles. We get you to the same place, but we approach it in a different way. We just have some, you know, different nuances of what we do. And after you go through your consult, our relationship strategist will match you with who they think you'll work with best. So that
Okay.
That's what I would recommend doing. You could also sign up for my strategy session, and we can do that too.
All right. Terrific. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Lisa, I went ahead and I put a link where you can book that free consult. It's the
I
good.
saw it.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah, grab that.
I did. All right.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Perfect. And Lisa, if you have any questions that you're not feeling you're getting answered that way, just reach out to me. I'm happy to answer whatever you need.
I logged in on my computer to your 30-minute coaching session. So I'm going to register for one of those. That'll be terrific.
You got it. Perfect.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, bye. It was good to meet you.
Same here.
Oh, there's Eugene from book club. Hi, Eugene. Jill, did you hit record? And we're good.